everybody. We're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook. He's Jason, I'm Chucky. I'm not even sure where to start, Jay, to be honest with you. There's so many different sports going on right now. It's such a fun time to be in our industry. Last weekend, of course, we had the Kentucky Derby and a standing room only crowd, not only in our book, but all our books industry-wide, being able to watch on the big screens where you could kind of see the snot from the horse's nose, the dirt kicking up, and just the atmosphere in the book. So many girls were wearing hats and just a fun type atmosphere. If you couldn't be at Churchill, there was no better place to be than one of our racing sports books on Derby Day.
Yeah, and you talked about the photo finish, watching Mystic Dan just by a nose and the other two horses. What a great race. And I think we got to go to the NBA, though. That's where
we'll start
we've
there.
Got some absolutely great matchups. And, some of these West Coast teams that maybe the Lakers and Warriors, that the Suns that everybody was thinking about, those aren't the teams that are in it right now. And I think
Minnesota.
The big thing, talk about the T-Wolves and Anthony Edwards and what they're doing to the defending champion Nuggets with the 2-0 lead, going into Denver, knocking them off 106-99 in Game 1, and then really an embarrassing Game 2 for the Nuggets with a 106-80 victory over Denver, and I think that was Denver's lowest point total.
Don't you think Edwards right now would be the playoff MVP?
Oh yeah, puts up 43 points in Game 1, goes and kind of punches Denver in the mouth. Now they go home. They're a 4.5 point favorite at home, and obviously what is a must-win game for the Nuggets here to go down 3-0.
You think about it. So they walk through the Pelicans 4-0. So they're now 6-0 in the postseason. They have the 2 wins in Denver. This is, to me, the most important game in the series for them. Because if you let Denver get back and win this game, they've got a lot of momentum going into Game 4 then. A win in Game 4, similar to what we saw in hockey with VGK in Dallas. Vegas went into Dallas, won 2 games, lost 2 games at home, kind of lost all that momentum. So this is critical for Minnesota right now against the defending champs to at least hold serve in one of those 2 games at home.
I think you're underselling the Timberwolves and saying they knocked off the Pelicans in 4. They actually knocked off the Suns in 4.
The Suns, right?
Oklahoma
I'm sorry,
City knocked off the Pelicans, which they were a dog in that series, if you remember. The Suns with the 3-headed monster and the veteran leadership they had there. Minnesota, impressive 4-0 knockoff of the Suns, who had beaten them in the regular season. So this is really a good run. And it wasn't as much as it was Anthony Edwards 43 points in Game 1. It was Karl Anthony Towns in Game 2 that was really the
having
point
both
go-getter.
those guys healthy is such a difference for that team.
But what a series there. And we'll stay on the West, talking about Oklahoma City. Obviously, a big 22-point victory over Dallas in Game 1. Gildress-Alexander, another absolutely fantastic game, but 117-95. I don't know if it was really kind of that close the whole game. It was kind of a stretched-out game. Oklahoma City kind of dominated from start to finish. But again, another what should be a very, very competitive series. We do expect Dallas to come back and get in that series on the west side of things.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about, as well as OKC has played too, since the NBA expanded their playoff format to the opening round being 7 games, teams that have won that first series and now have won 5 games, only 6 times has a team won 5 of their first wins in the postseason with the expanded format by 20 points or more. You have to add 2 teams to that now, and that's Boston and OKC this year, who have won 3 of their games that they've won, 3 of their 5 games so far by 20 points or more. So pretty impressive offensive performances by those 2 teams.
And we did see this Dallas team kind of struggle in their matchup with the Clippers, where we saw the Clippers win some big games in the first round matchup. Dallas would come back, so they were really lose and bounce back, and then able to close out the Clippers. So obviously Kyrie Irving had a good game, still a 22-point launch, and we know Luka Doncic, what he's going to do on the offensive side. So I expect this to be a higher scoring series. The 117-95 I thought was a little bit lower scoring than what I was expecting out of these 2 teams to go up and down the floor. But I do expect this series to be a 6 or 7 game series, and we'll see what the Nuggets come with against the T-Wolves here to get back into this thing.
Interesting with Denver. I mean, you talk about Denver. They're a minus 19 in the first half of playoff games this year. So they just cannot get untracked. We always talk about in the NBA, everybody's going to make a run. They just haven't made that run. If you like Minnesota, bet them in the first half, because Denver has not gotten off in the first half in any of their playoff games yet.
Yeah, and that started in the last series against the Lakers, where we saw the Lakers continuously have halftime leads, and then the Nuggets would find themselves back in the ball game. And that's, again, this Nuggets team, they know what they need to do. They know what they need to do to win. We talk and joke about Jokic, who won his 3rd MVP this year. Congratulations. But it's just almost like a little bit of a Eeyore as he goes down the court. There's nothing dynamic.
Very methodical.
Yes,
slow and methodical.
Better word than Eeyore. But just up and down the court and methodical in the way that they go and score points, and it's nothing dynamic about it. They just find a way to win games, and they haven't been able to do that against this T-Wolves. And obviously the defense, Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns and Edwards has been kind of
Gobert Defensive Player of the Year as well. So
that's going to be interesting. On the other side, we'll start with the Boston. We've only seen one game between Boston and the Cavs. Obviously, another blowout victory.
Yeah, very impressive.
25-point victory for the Celtics, something that they've been doing consistently throughout the playoffs. Again, started with kind of the blowout series against the Heat. Heat were able to steal one of those games, but the rest of those games are blowouts. And then obviously the blowout in Game 1 over the Cavs. A really balanced attack for Boston.
Yep.
We're going to have to see Mitchell and Garland do something special on the Cavs side of things. We talk about Boston, they're the favorite to win it all.
Look at the number. I mean, when you get to this point in either hockey or the NBA or any sport, you're not expecting to see a team that's 12.5 or 13.5 point favorites. I think the number dictates just what you're saying right now.
Yeah, there's no other way about it. Boston is the favorite to win the NBA championship. They look like the favorites to win the NBA championship. They're doing it on the court. They're doing it with a lot of balance with a lot of different guys. It's going to take a big effort from Mitchell in one of these games to find a way to steal the game from them.
And how about the Knicks? I mean, the Knicks have been crazy good so far. I mean, just a great atmosphere. The way that they're playing right now, not a lot of depth. They're going to need their starting five to really, monumental effort. But Brunson's people have said he's a closer. I think he's a superstar. I mean, he's really upped the ante of his overall game right now. He knows how to finish. You look at what he's going to put that team on his back, but he's going to have to do that big time, not only in this series, but if they get by Indiana, against Boston if they're playing Boston.
I think he's got 5 40-point plus
tremendous
games so far in the playoffs. Put up 43 in Game 1, which was a 4-point victory for the Knicks, and then 29, but he missed most of the second quarter in Game 2. It was a 9-point victory, but it was a really a much closer game than the 131-21 final. And this series, much like some of the hockey series we're going to talk about, this series has got some chip on the shoulder starting to develop.
Chippy.
For this Indiana Pacers team. Carlisle ejected from the game last night. This Pacer team, Turner and what they've got going on, they are not out of this series. And the Knicks, have, despite being 2-0, have not dominated this series.
I worry again about the depth with the injury to Robinson.
The Pacers have been competitive. They've been in the lead. They look competitive going up and down the floor, and it's just a couple baskets, a couple bad shots here and there. But as this series goes on and we head back to Indiana, I'm excited to watch this series. Like you talked about, Brunson's been the closer, a lot of big fourth quarter points, a lot of big points for him. But the Pacers coming home to that Indiana crowd, and that Indiana crowd, whether it's the Pacers or the Indiana Fever, which we're going to start to get going with the WNBA and what we're going to see there. But Indiana's going to have some exciting basketball here in the end of May, and as we go into June, we'll see if it's the Pacers or just the Fever.
Check out
something to look out for. This Pacer team is going to play with a real chip on their shoulder come these home games, and what I think is going to be some hard fouls and a tough physical game against this Knicks moving forward.
First, check out all the props we have up in the WNBA. Got the Aces opening game up, the Fever, Aces against the Fever, and some really good props with Caitlin Clark as well.
Preseason WNBA was up. I think they played a night against the Dream. Caitlin Clark's total 19.5. So click over to WNBA preseason games. You can find those props available tonight.
And I think, we've always talked about in the past, too, especially in the NBA, it's kind of that zigzag theory. And that really holds true, I think, for the Indiana-New York series, where Indiana drops both games on the road. They come home right now. That's kind of the way we're seeing that series bet. On the flip side, it's that Minnesota-Denver series where Denver drops both games at home, really needs to steal this Game 3. I think you'll see some Denver money show. And you guys have been absolutely right, because the one team that we have any liability on in the future book is the Minnesota Timberwolves. So you guys kind of saw that. You think about last June, and there are some tickets on them from last June. The Minnesota Timberwolves were 65-1, so a lot of value there in the future book.
Yeah, and that place, I said it when they played at home against the Suns, and the Suns were a favorite in the series. That place that hasn't had a lot of experience with playing playoff basketball, and so that is a tough building to go into, especially right now with the young superstar and the guys that they have veterans around him. Minnesota is going to be a tough out and tough.
You look at
tough to come back for the Nuggets.
I think it's their depth and their size. I mean, you talked about kind of the three-headed monster they have that can play defense so well. I think that size is going to give a lot of teams trouble.
And looking forward, if they pull this upset here, they match up well against the Thunder and or Dallas from that standpoint.
So we kind of talked a little bit about NBA, WNBA. We're going to bounce over now to the ice. Unfortunately, no VGK, and it's kind of with mixed emotions for us. I mean, granted, from the business side, in that best-of-7 series, we were clearly rooting for the Stars every game. As far as the series price went, we were rooting from the Stars. 16 teams make the NHL playoffs. One team we had liability on, the Vegas Golden Knights. However, I think the atmosphere, the hype, the crowd in the book, having hockey wagers not only on VGK but other games really amped up because of VGK. From the fan side of it, you want them to move on. And unfortunately, it didn't happen this year. They've got some big question marks on Marshy and Martinez. And a couple of other Stevenson, a couple of other guys. What are they going to do moving forward? But kind of surprising they got knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, I read today that McCrimmon said this is really, they think, the best roster that they've ever put together, and they just didn't have a chance to gel with the fact that obviously Stone sat out for so long on the long-term IR, brought in some of the guys at the trade deadline, just health and overall playing together, and you talked about older guys kind of merging and stuff like that, but we'll see what they end up doing. And regardless,
it's hard to, don't you think?
March yourself,
it's hard to
42
lose
goals,
Margie.
To find and what these guys mean to
the community,
the community, and the team, and obviously they won a Stanley Cup, and you're never going to be able to take that away from them. But this team is so much more than just a something that's in our sports books. It's something we take bets on as we live and breathe and work in this community. What the Vegas Golden Knights have meant to us since their launch, and obviously Stanley Cup champions. But the 1 October and a city of transplants where people are from all over, and the common bond that is the Golden Knights.
The misfits. It's being coined the misfits, I think, guys that other teams didn't want and were able to come here and what they did their inaugural season, and then, as you mentioned, being Stanley Cup champs.
It's so brought the community together, and you can't drive your car without seeing license plate flames and stickers and without getting sentimental. The Vegas Golden Knights are so important in this Las Vegas Valley, and we're so proud of the things that they did in the Cup run. And while we're frustrated to see them knocked out, an incredible run, and we'll look to get back at it next year.
It's really strange not having them in it, just because of kind of the demand about they're on the big screen with audio, kind of the crowds that would come in here on nights that they played. I know we had a lot of viewing parties here at Red Rock. It's just so...
It tells you how difficult the Stanley Cup run is. We've talked about, go talk to Toronto Maple Leaf fans.
They can't get out of the first round.
How difficult it is to make this run, and how appreciative we should be that this team has consistently been in the playoffs, made these cup runs, and what the ownership group, what Foley, what the leadership group has done, continue to put talent on the ice, spend the money to put the team in this situation. And again, that's what has made us such fans of the team and what they're doing to give us the best product on the ice.
I think if you're a Knights fan, though, there's no reason to really hit the panic button. You and I mean, growing up in Chicago, being huge Hawk fans, they kind of surprise everybody. They win it in 10. 11 and 12 are struggles because of the salary cap. They win it again in 13. Probably should have won it again in 14, kind of a fluky goal in that overtime game against the Kings, but they win it in 10, 13, and 15. It shows how difficult it is to repeat. So the Knights, even though they were 8th seed this year, they had a lot of injuries, and as you mentioned, a lot of these guys, Hannafin and some of the trades they made, didn't have time to gel. I think they'll be a much different team for the start of next season.
Well, we'll get there when we get there. Let's talk about the team that they played in the Cup. We'll start in the East with the Florida Panthers, obviously going up against the Bruins. Bruins had an epic 7-game series.
Talking about Chippy.
Yes. Bruins had the epic 7-game series against Toronto. Then we're able to go in and steal Game 1 with a 5-1 victory over Florida. Florida bounces back last night with a big 6-1 victory over Boston. We talk about the chippiness and 76 hits, I think, on the Florida side of things.
That is old-time hockey.
We saw Pasternak square off with Tkachuk in a fight. Pasternak only had one other career fight in his career. To see those two guys...
You sure it was even a fight he had in his career?
Those two guys throw punches. It kind of sets the tone for where we're at moving forward. They interviewed the coaches afterward. They both loved it, talked about what this means to the team, how you back the guys in the locker room. Florida obviously came into this series as a kind of a 2-1 favorite over the Bruins with their kind of cleanup of Tampa in Game 1, and the Bruins kind of showing some holes with Toronto able to beat them. Now the series goes back to Boston. I think this is still going to be a fantastic series, but I think Florida does line up. Obviously, they're going to have to go, if they win this and get through this, they're going to have to go beat the Rangers or Carolina. But I think Florida's got that grind and that mojo that they had last year.
They were there.
In that same
you get
kind
a
of run to
taste
the cup
last year. And don't forget, these two teams played in the playoffs last year. Boston had a 3-1 lead, an epic collapse. They ended up losing the last 3 games, including that Game 7 at home, and Florida went on to the Stanley Cup Finals to lose ultimately to Vegas. But these two teams have some really bad blood. It's going to be interesting to see now how Boston plays going back to the Garden.
So all that time you'd be spending turning into the Vegas Golden Knights games, switch it over to watch these other hockey series because they really are some good series. And if you like to see a little hockey with a little boxing involved, I think that you're definitely going to want to tune into this Boston,
little boxing,
Florida,
I like
this
it.
Florida series.
So let's stay out east. And the team that is on fire right now is the New York Rangers. I mean, they've just been unbelievable, undefeated so far in the postseason. And you look at their goalie, Shesterkin. I mean, in his career, 23 playoff games, he has never given up more than 3 goals. So the Rangers know if they score more than 3 goals, they're winning that playoff game. That double overtime win the other night was phenomenal hockey. You just had a feeling, the way the crowd, the atmosphere in the Garden, they are so hungry for a champion right now. This Ranger team is playing really, really well. They've got a lot of depth. They've got scoring. But the most important thing is they have a goalie who is standing on his head right now and can steal a game against anybody who's left in the playoffs.
Rangers 4-3 victory in Game 1. 4-3 double overtime victory in Game 2. However, they were outshot by Carolina 25-23 in Game 1 and Game 2 57-39. So as much as they've won the 2 games, Carolina's somewhat been the better team on the ice and kind of outplayed them. And Carolina, go back and look, this year, last year, several years, Carolina cannot win in Madison Square Garden. It's a place that they don't like to play. They can't win. So
they better hold serve at home.
Yeah,
then.
They're going to have to look for some big efforts at home where they've been absolutely fantastic at home throughout the playoffs. So look for big efforts from the Panthers in these next 2 games at home.
I'm going to give you the stat for the next these games that are coming up right now. The New York Rangers on the puck line in the role of a dog is 9-1, getting a goal and a half in their last 10 games. They're an underdog in Game 3 against Carolina here. Looking out west now, we touched a little bit about Dallas and Colorado. Epic collapse. I thought Dallas up 3-0 after that Game 7 win against VGK. Had a chance to really, I think, keep that momentum going. They're up 3-0. They end up losing that game to Colorado. I think it's going to be awfully tough to come back against Colorado in that one. And then you've got the 2 Canadian teams, Vancouver and Edmonton. So we will have a Canadian team. There's been no Canadian team to win the Cup since 1993, the Montreal Canadiens. So 31 years who beat the LA Kings that year. So you're going to have one of the Canadian teams at least in the Western Conference Finals. I don't know how Vancouver's doing it. 4th string goalie right now. So, but they were down 4-2, 3 goals in 5 minutes last night. I know you and I were watching and texting back and forth. But just an epic collapse by Edmonton. Not sure why McDavid can't seem to get them to the next level, but a huge come-from-behind win for the Canucks last night.
Yeah, I'll start in the Canucks series because that's the one we just finished on. Obviously, we were big Canuck fans last night, texting back and forth.
That crowd was crazy, too. You could really see it.
Yeah, and you talked about Edmonton. Edmonton's been doing with the goal scoring. Obviously, Hyman, Draisaitl, McDavid, these guys have been absolutely fantastic. Vancouver has to stay off the penalty kill. They cannot put this Edmonton team on the power play. That'll be the story of the series. Can they stay, or if they commit the penalties, what kind of penalty kill can they have? If you put Edmonton on the power play, you literally have no chance. Incredible comeback by them.
On the flip side, Edmonton has killed off every power play in the postseason.
They've been fantastic.
Right.
And that, it was a great comeback, but Vancouver was playing good hockey. You talked about they're sitting, 4th string goaltender, so you can't just give up a lot of opportunities. But Edmonton doesn't have the goaltending that in this series either. So these could be some high scoring games up and down the ice. There's not a lot of dump and chase, which kind of takes time up as you're digging stuff out of the corners. Both these teams like to carry the puck in, carry it in, skate it back, and that leads to more shots on goals. So I do potentially see a lot of scoring here. On the other side, we talk about Dallas. We talked about the big Game 7 win for Dallas, and then they come up with a 3-0
Right.
first period over Colorado.
I
and
thought
then
the momentum was like, wow,
was
this team is like
unbelievable to watch them let Colorado leak back into this game and build momentum and confidence.
Especially with Ottinger. I just didn't think. I thought, and they did that against Vegas. They cut off the middle of the ice. They made you go to the outside. I thought that's really what they're going to do to Colorado, make them really work. Maybe they get a goal or so, but they're going to keep them outside. They let them come back in that game so quickly after the first period.
And this will be another one. As much as we talk about power plays and penalty kills, this is another series where Dallas cannot put Colorado on the power play. Colorado's power play with McKinnon, it's unbelievable.
McKinnon and Makar.
It's
Getting around
not
Makar is the
unstoppable,
point, and he's unbelievable.
It takes too much out of your team to put those guys in those winning situations, playing with the odd man, and so Dallas has got to stay consistent. They took some bad penalties against the Knights that kind of let the Knights come back in those series. Dallas was the better team throughout the series against the Vegas Golden Knights. It really, all 7 games, there wasn't a game that they weren't the better team on the ice. So they were the number 1 team in the West for a reason. They're projected, they are a better team than the Colorado Avalanche, but Colorado Avalanche have some special players that do some special things that lead to these type of victories. So again, VGK out of it. It's tough to want to get up to watch hockey, but man, these are absolutely incredible series that I can't wait to tune in and continue to watch these games.
VGK
and the props.
Right.
Don't forget about the massive number of props. I mean, literally, click on the app and you see a number that's like 257, 269. That's the number of other available wagering options on these games, from goal scorers, point getters, first period,
Points
second period,
great,
third
right.
periods, alternate lines, alternate totals, live wagering. There's so much stuff between the basketball and the hockey. Jump in and check out all those props.
Well, 2 things. One, the Lanch had won the Cup 2 years ago. They got eliminated in the first round last year. They're back again now, 1 series away from playing in the Western Conference Finals. So I think that you can look at that a little bit similar for VGK. The last thing on Vancouver, though, it's so important to them that if they can win both games at home, because their number 1 goalie, Thatcher Demko, is scheduled to maybe return Game 4. So if they can kind of weather that storm, that's why it was such a big win coming from behind last night and winning that game, that they could get a huge boost if they're up 2-1 in that series with Demko coming back possibly for Game 4.
I'm ready. Let's get there and keep watching these games. I think they're great.
From a future book perspective, again, from the business side, 16 teams make the playoffs, only 1 liability on, so we're in pretty good shape with the rest of the teams that are left. We'll see how it unfolds. So we've kind of broken down the NBA and NHL playoffs. We're about a month and a half in baseball right now. So let's talk a little bit of MLB as well.
Well, we've been losing. So there's a lot of.
I didn't mean to laugh so loud.
There's a lot of. We'll call it. There's a lot of teams playing very, very well.
I try to avoid his texts late at night, early in the morning.
There's a lot of teams that are playing very, very poor. And so when the Los Angeles Dodgers, who've now won 7 straight, have a run differential of plus 74, scored 214 runs, most in baseball so far, sitting at 26-13.
John, can you cut out giving all the stats to the guests so they don't?
And this was
after
a kind of a tough opening to the season where they lost some games. So the Dodgers are really hitting their stride, covering a lot of run lines, cashing a lot of tickets for players in the Dodgers. We're also seeing the Philadelphia Phillies and Atlanta Braves putting some big streaks together. Again, playing some kind of mediocre baseball to start the season, and now they're catching fire. Bryce Ohtani's been absolutely unbelievable for the Dodgers.
O's and Yankees are red hot.
Betts has been absolutely fantastic for the Dodgers. Glasnow leads the lead with 6 wins. Yokamada has been absolutely fantastic. We talked the Phillies, the Braves winning games. And then we see the Orioles and the Yankees on the American League side kind of doing the same things. And so when these teams
Twins
are all
too, 8-2 in their last 10.
Winning streaks together, you think the Yankees have won 5 games in a row, and then you have teams like the Colorado Rockies that are 8-28.
Right.
And teams and players just are kind of picking on them on a daily basis, playing against the Giants or playing against the Rockies.
Is it surprising to you that the Reds and Cards are so bad as well? I mean, the Reds really were a team that I know we talked about could possibly win the National League Central, and the Cards were kind of that sharp guy kind of sleeper team that they bet on. Both teams really struggling. On the flip side, A's 18-21, 6-4 in their last 10 games, and the Nationals, who we thought these two teams would be at the bottom, 18-18 and 6-4 in their last 2 games. It's those other teams led by the Rockies that you've really bet against so far in cash.
Oh yeah, the White Sox have the last week or two
Right.
have actually found a way to win some games, but picking on the Rockies, picking on the Marlins, those two teams specifically have been bad news for sportsbooks. Whoever they're playing, it's a free box on your bingo square to give you a winner. For me, the two big surprises. Number one is the Houston Astros.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely underperforming. A good bet against Kyle Tucker. Really, the only guy on the team that's actually hitting with any consistency.
They're 12-24.
Not getting any good pitching. Not getting any good bullpen performance, and really not hitting the baseball. And then surprisingly enough, the other one for me is the Toronto Blue Jays. Still sitting under 500.
Yep.
They've got a lineup full of guys that are supposed to be able to hit. They've got some big pitchers on the top. They've got a bullpen, and they're just not winning games. And so bettors have been able to take those two teams that have been expecting to win games and getting plus prices on the other teams to be able to win some games against those two.
To me,
folks.
a little bit too. It's those two teams, but I think it's the Reds, because going into the season and even last year, everybody kind of talked about the minor league system of Baltimore in the American League and the Reds in the National League, that both these teams were loaded and ready to take the next step. We've seen Baltimore do that, but for whatever reason, the Reds haven't. We know they had an injury before the season started, but they really haven't been able to kind of turn that corner with all the talent that they have as far as young kids coming up.
Yeah, the lineup, when you talk about the young talent, obviously we'll talk lead with Ellie De La Cruz, who's
Right.
An all-world
Phenomenal.
wonder
Right.
in what he's doing. He leads the league with 21 stolen bases. But the Reds' problem is the consistency of a batting average throughout the lineup. Whether it's Will Benson, Ellie De La Cruz, Jonathan India, Spencer Steer.
Look at all their batting averages, below 250.
And Encarnacion,
Right.
they're all kind of in that lower range. So they have big wins when they're at home and able to hit in that ballpark where they have the higher batting average. When they go on the road, they struggle to score. And they've had a lot of games where they're scoring under 2 runs. That's leading to the team not being able to win very many games. And they don't have that, Hunter Green, Lodolo still kind of coming back. And then they kind of build with a bunch of kind of, call it middle-of-the-road starters where you don't know what you're going to get onto them on a consistent basis.
I wonder if they're a team that actually trades some of their young talent to get some pitching at the deadline, depending on where they're at.
We'll talk pitching. You want to talk about pitching? We'll talk about the Chicago Cubs, because what they're doing with their starters is absolutely fantastic. Let's not address anything after the 7th inning, talking about
After
a
the
bullpen
7th,
for the Cubs. But Shada Imagata has been absolutely fantastic. I think he leads all Major League Baseball with a 1.06, 1.08 ERA. And then the rest of the starters all been fantastic as well. I think Assad, who's got a 1.6 ERA, is the worst of the 5 starters. So the Cubs really, really doing some good things.
And that
on
had
the
been
pitching
with
side of
Steele
things.
only really pitching 4 innings this year.
Taeyon's been really, really good, and so they've been really, really good. Again, not getting consistent hitting, and then blowing a lot of games with the bullpen, as we've still trying to figure out who's supposed to be closing games out there in the back half at Council. Coming over from Milwaukee, his biggest challenge is figuring out who's going to close out games.
With that said, we've already seen the Marlins make a trade with the Padres, and they could be in sell mode. There could be a few other teams. The Cardinals maybe in sell mode. Both teams have some closers, and then Toronto could be in sell mode a little bit as well. So if you're the Cubs right now, I think you have to look at teams that are willing to make a deal, because your farm system is loaded. Go out and get a closer.
The White Sox traded Grossman yesterday to the Rangers, picked up Tommy Pham. I think the White Sox are wide open for anybody that's looking for anything that they may have. They're willing to sell as well.
All right, so we've touched on baseball, basketball, hockey. Jay combined hockey and boxing. So now we're going to talk UFC and boxing.
Sounds good.
So there's UFC fight weekend this week. And then you've got a couple of, boxing events as well. You've got Camboso against Limoncello. And then you've got a really good, the WBA women's welterweight title bout between McCaskill and Price as well on the board. So there's so much going on right now that's kind of fun for the bettors.
Yeah, coming off, the last couple weekends where we saw Garcia knock off Haney as a big underdog boxing.
Again, you got to bring up bad news.
Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia was a great fight. Canelo kind of dominated the later rounds of the fight to get a victory there. But a lot of wagering coming in on boxing. And you talked about having the Lomachenko-Kambosa fight. Again, the same similar situation where we have a $7 favorite with a $5 dog. Take another chance on those dogs. Going into next week, Preakness week, we'll call it, the May 18th, where we're going to have another $20,000 Twin Q.
Another one.
Preakness Saturday. We got Usyk versus Fury. Won't have a big dog in that fight. That fight will be a pick'em fight, which will be another good one.
There's some money showing against Fury, which is kind of surprising a little bit.
And you talked about the UFC this week, the heavyweights in the fight night. Derek Lewis for Rodrigo Nocemito. So that one is slight favorite, but again, another great foul. And then we just hung Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul.
Iron Mike.
July 20th on Netflix, a special 8 rounds,
2-minute rounds,
14-ounce gloves. We'll see 57-year-old Mike Tyson take on 27-year-old Jake Paul.
The largest gap ever for a boxing match of 30 years.
But
the largest ever in
your
age.
May, June, and July, a ton of boxing. June is loaded up with some really, really good UFC cards with some outstanding fighters on the UFC cards. So, again, if you don't have the app, get the app, the props, everything that we're doing, the rounds, the 5-ways, the knockout rounds. There's so much to bet on just besides picking the winner of the fight. A lot of props available in boxing and MMA.
Yeah, we love it when you guys, come out and enjoy everything we have to offer, not only at our book, but all of our books. And speaking of all of our books, there is a brand spanking new, state-of-the-art, phenomenal book that is opening up in Henderson, and that's our new Racing Sports book at Sunset Station.
Yeah, Thursday, May 16th, approximately about 9:25 in the morning. You'll be able to come in and make the first bets at the brand new Sunset Racing Sports book. And
wait a minute, it does touch my heart as I spent 10 years there. And it's a phenomenal property. It's got great bones. The book is huge and spacious, and now from a state-of-the-art technology standpoint, it is second to none. You have to come check it out. It is really the jewel of Henderson right now. It is a phenomenal spot to watch. You think about the big screens we have. Where do you see Sunset Station?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what to say. When we talk about when you walk in there,
wow.
I think the debate is over on the best sports book in the Valley. It's literally a mic drop. Come in, check it out. It's a jaw-dropping experience. And I thought that when we opened Durango, that, man, it just doesn't get any cooler than this with the screen that we put around the bar, the big screen that we put up, the footprint combined with the George. Durango has got a vibe and a sportsbook feel that is absolutely exceptional. But I think when you walk in
don't you
Sunset
think this
Station,
it becomes a destination?
That's
what's so
like I
cool.
said, it's a jaw, and it's not just a book. It's what it does to a whole feel of the property.
It's a destination. It brings people there.
It expands into the slot section. It expands into their table games. It expands kind of throughout the floor, and it just encompasses. And if you remember, if you've ever been there, their bar kind of closed off and didn't open up to the sports book, and now that bar opens up into just this massive, massive video wall. And I don't want to put out too many spoilers. I want you to get out to Sunset Station and see it for yourself.
Not spoilers.
But
teasers.
May 16th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Preakness Saturday, get out on that side of town. Again, a $20,000 twin queue at all of our books. But look forward to that opening weekend. Make a special trip out to Sunset Station. I promise you won't be disappointed. Spend some time, lounge, bar, book. Absolutely unbelievable.
Jordan and Ryan, congratulations over at Sunset. Jay and I will both be there on Thursday. We can't wait for kind of the unveiling and just to see people's faces and their eyes when we open this up.
We're going to do bookends next week from Sunset. So you'll be able to tune in and see some of the backdrops, and we'll walk you through some of the absolutely special, incredible features from a seating standpoint, race seating standpoint, the bar. And maybe we'll even do a little bit behind the scenes.
The video wall, though, is just crazy
of what we got going on at Sunset.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, guys. So again, don't forget the app. It's a great time to get signed up with the odds boost and
$50 no worry wager.
$50 no worry wager. Same game parlays. There's so many cool things on it. It's one wallet with Preakness coming up. So you sign up locally for the racing, for the sports side of it. You automatically get the race side. We saw so many guests kind of find that for Kentucky Derby Day and really talk positive about that. So again, come on out, have some fun, get signed up for the app, and we will see you guys next week from Sunset Station as their new book opens up Thursday the 16th at 9:25 a.m. So for Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast powered by STN Sports. We'll see you guys next week again from Sunset Station.